The state of these slopes in lots of places is a remnant of historical clearing, and that's been really challenging because it's also created a rain shadow almost, so it's even drier here without the vegetation to bring in the weather. So it's very hard country, and the Pasture Network program that we're working on, which is funded through NRM South and the Australian Government's National Landcare program, is looking at working with producers to try and create resilience in this landscape. Trials around the south of Australia have shown that salt bushes and also other natives can be used to supplement food for sheep, and it's really great because the diversity of different species adds more to the sheep diet. So obviously we're using these in marginal country, but in Tassie we were really interested in doing a trial, a commercial sized trial, to see if we could work out the cost and benefit of having saltbush in the landscape here. So we've done 5 hectares and we've planted thousands of shrubs and 3 different species at this site of saltbush. And we're really keen to see in a couple of years these plants here, it's only a little tacker at the moment, they were planted in winter last year, so we're keen to see these up here, about here, and then we'll graze them and we'll look at the cost and benefit. So how much did it cost to put in this amount of plants over 5 hectares, and how much more food is there available? So we'll have a control site so we can show what happens normally, and then with this site covered in shrubs. The great thing about shrubs is that they're deep rooted. So the pasture grass here obviously has quite shallow roots. With these guys, they're perennial. They live for the next 20 years, and they'll put lots of deep roots down, and they bring up more water, more nutrients, and so that translates into the animal. A lot of times people say that they get advice from agronomists about species and they put them in, but they may not have the right species mix for the environment. So we're looking at what does go well, how does it persist, and then trying to work with people to spread that knowledge as well. We're also doing case studies, remediation of a very, very red raw north-facing slope, and looking at how to improve clover in pasture, as well as dealing with those menace weedy annual grasses. Also we're doing a dryland tailored course, pasture course. Often what we find here in Tassie is that the courses are actually developed for more high rainfall good soil areas, so we're turning that around and we're working on a dryland principle. We visit farms every 7 weeks and we work with the people to see what they're up to, what's working, what's not, and what we could do to improve it.
We're looking at some pasture trial strips that we've put in to hopefully survive in this dry, low rainfall, north-facing slope environment. So baking out in the sun here on this soil, life can be a bit of a struggle for perennial pastures. The pasture here is only young, just establishing, but it's got the potential to transform how they might manage and use this part of the landscape. And I guess that's really what we are. We're only doing a little bit in the landscape, but trying to unlock the thinking about where these species, where this improvement process can be taken into the landscape to improve the overall resilience of otherwise less used or less managed parts of the land resource.
We're dealing with a north-facing slope here, which is prone to exposure and degradation if you're not careful. So we want to take areas like this and improve them over the long term. So this project has allowed us to plant a lot of shrubs, which we hope over the next 2 to 3 years will take hold. We're excluding livestock, and then it's all about conserving some of the areas on the farm that are prone to degradation, and improve the landscape, and hopefully have the dual purpose of achieving a production and conservation outcome.
The saltbush trial that we've engaged in sort of helps in a couple of ways in terms of potential future drought proofing. One, that you're growing a hardy shrub on a very severe, in our case, severe north-facing bit of country that is going to help hold the soil together in those dry years, but it also doubles up and provides a form of protein for animals as well to be grazed on. We're in a climate that is getting drier, and we just have to live with the fact that every few years we're going to have a nasty dry crunch, and it just is part of the production system. And having measures in place to remove animals from your property whether that's selling or retaining and feeding, so that you can maintain ground cover, not deplete your resource, and when it rains, which it always does, you've got a property that is ready to bounce.
So one of our purposes here, I guess, is to demonstrate that improved persistent species do have a role in parts of the landscape where they haven't been there before, and that improvement has value, not only in that production and sustainability, but also just in building the resilience, profitability of farms through time, so they can withstand the normal low rainfall dryland environment, but also challenges through drought as they come along, and being more resilient to the potential for climate change too.